I'd like to call to order the October 1st, 2025 Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Staff, can we please do a roll call and establish quorum?
At this time, I'm only asking those CAC members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Lily Charlotte Landstrom.
Here.
Aquanette Tyson Thomas.
Here.
Kate Layden.
Here.
James Garvin.
Here.
Tay Gaines is excused. Paula Ryan is excused. Jim Knight is excused. Lauren Steve.
Here.
Cheryl Mirante.
Here.
BJ Mishra is excused. Michael Cuervis.
Cuevas here.
Myron Uman.
Human here.
James Lafferty.
Here.
Greg Fagan.
Here.
Win Dang. Alex Freeman.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Oh, Albert Richwagon.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, great. Are there any changes to the minutes?
No, Mr. Chair.
If not, may I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented? Motion by Greg, second?
Second.
Second, all right. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Passes. Thank you very much.
Mm.
Instructions on how to provide public comment are included in the agenda. Staff have received any general comments?
No, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you.
Mm.
As a reminder for action items on the agenda, there are conflict of interest forms available if needed. At this time, I want to invite any CAC member comments on items not already on the agenda. Seeing none. All right. We're going to turn the floor over to Matthew Moss, our Senior Transportation Planner, to provide an update in the CAC Liaisons Report.
Good afternoon, members. We have a long list today, so I'll get through it pretty quick. First off, we have Walk and Roll to School Day coming up. So National Walk and Roll to School Day is October 8th, so next week. Learn more, find resources to plan your events with local schools and see who's participating at walkbiketoschool.org. Also going on is the Countywide Transportation Master Plan. Staff have been out to these meetings and pretty well attended. I hope you've all had a chance to maybe go to your local areas. Palm Beach County has kicked off their Countywide Transportation Master Plan. We encourage everyone, if you haven't already taken the surveys, to provide input and pass along those surveys to people in your community at pbcmoves.com. A Walkable, Bikeable Communities Workshop. So we would like you guys to join us on November 3rd from 2 to 4 p.m. for a workshop with John Batters to learn about strategies for building support for walkable and bikeable communities. You can RSVP at palmbeachtpa.org/walk-bike-workshop. The Call for Projects Workshop. So you can join us November 7th from 9 to 10 a.m. to learn more about the 2026 Call for Projects funding programs and application process. You can register for this workshop at palmbeachtpa.org/funding. Palm Beach Gardens TOD tour. So you can join the TPA or MPO at November 3rd or 13th from November 13th from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. to learn about transit-oriented development in Palm Beach Gardens. RSVP at palmbeachtpa.org/PBGTOD tour. The Dutch Cycling Transformation webinar. You can join us November 20th from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. to learn more about how the Netherlands is building its bicycle network. RSVP at palmbeachtpa.org/Dutch Cycling webinar. West Palm Beach walking tour. So join us December 3rd from 4 to 5 p.m. for a walking tour with the West Palm Beach Downtown Development Authority. You can RSVP at palmbeachtpa.org/walking tour. And then Palm Beach County TMC tour. Join us January 22nd, 2026 from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. for a tour of the county's traffic management center. Again, you can RSVP at palmbeachtpa.org/TMC tour. And then 2026 Safe Roads Summit. The next regional summit organized by the 3 South Florida MPOs will be taking place in Fort Lauderdale this coming year, February 25th to 26th. And more information will be shared soon. So I encourage everyone, if you're not signed up for our events list, please sign up for our newsletters and events to keep informed. And then FY27 to FY27, 2027 to 2030 draft tentative work program. So FDOT will release the draft tentative work program in late October. Staff will send it to committees once available. So to keep up to date and learn more, go to fdot.gov/topics/FDOT-work-program. And then, as some of you may know, the Palm Beach MPO, so beginning in October, the agency will now be using the statutory name Palm Beach Metropolitan Planning Organization. All TPA web links will be redirected to palmbeachmpo.org, and that process will be ongoing in the next couple of weeks. Again, resources, events, and newsletters, if you have not signed up already, we encourage you to sign up to follow along and hear about our agency updates. And as an additional reminder, this agency or this committee had asked about a freight presentation workshop that will be coming in the December meeting. And that is all I have, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Are there any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
Do any committee members have any comments or questions for the liaisons report? Myron.
The County Traffic Management Center, that's still a jog road complex.
Yes.
I know I've signed up for the Palm Beach Gardens TOD tour and the West Palm walking tour, and I'm looking forward to both of those. So thank you all very much for that opportunity. Any other comments from the CAC? All right.
I want to also just give a shout out to Cheryl Moriente, representative for the Palm Beach County District. She's actually helping out with that walking tour. So if anybody has anything that they have ideas about planning, coincidentally, that tour also follows a CAC meeting. So you'll be able to transition right from this meeting into a walking tour of downtown West Palm Beach. We're trying to see if we can get something like just a little social organized too with that. So thank you to our assistants from the DDA for pulling that out and making it happen.
That's awesome, Brian. Thank you for letting us know. I appreciate it. And looking forward to it, Cheryl. All right. There are no action items on the agenda, so we're going to skip down to informational items. So number 3A, Safe Streets and Roads for All update. I invite Brian Rusher, Deputy Director of Multimodal, to present on this item.
Hi, everybody. Brian Rusher, Deputy Director of Multimodal at the Palm Beach MPO. I'm going to be giving you a pretty good look at some of the safety efforts that we've had ongoing recently at the agency. So there's no action item today, but we decided it would be a good opportunity to get us all together, highlight some of the things that are going on in terms of national grants that have been obligated to Florida through our municipalities and our county, give you an idea of what that program looks like through the Safe Streets and Roads for All, and then also give you an idea of some of the tools and resources that are available that the MPO has worked on over the past few months that are published online that you have access to. So we'll start with the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. This is an FHWA grant, Federal Highway Administration, for those who don't love acronyms. And this program was started under the previous federal administration, but it's been carried forward with at least one funding cycle this year. This is a grant which has a purpose of identifying projects and implementing projects that will help prevent deaths and serious injuries on our roadway network, using a series of action strategies, demonstration projects, and implementation of corridor-wide studies to essentially get at a safe system approach. The safe system approach, as defined by the Federal Highway Administration, is that circular chart that you see on the left: safer people, safer vehicles, safer speeds, safer roads, and post-crash care. So this is the framework that FHWA uses when they allocate money to this grant. And it's essentially a new framework of thinking in terms of road safety starting with the first and foremost tenet that death and serious injuries on our road system are not acceptable. It acknowledges that humans can make mistakes and that we are vulnerable to those mistakes. So our road system must be designed to be forgiving for all users and be proactive in that approach. So give you an idea of what some of those types of grants are. We can talk about that. I have a slide which shows some of the local initiatives that have been programmed, but that's just a general overview of the program. I was hoping that we would have announcements for that 2025 funding cycle this month. With the status of the federal government currently shut down, that might be put on hold. So if we do hear any announcements of some of the grants that Palm Beach County and the municipalities put forward are awarded, we will be letting everybody know. And probably our next committee meeting in December is when we'll be able to share a little bit more detail and information about that. But stay tuned. And a lot of other grants have been allocated up to this point. And work has been done for that matter. So the way that the FHWA, the Highway Administration, looks at safety through this program is that it starts with an action plan. You need to have a plan in place that will address 9 critical criteria that FHWA outlined that says we are going to look at this holistically. We're going to look at the safe systems approach, and essentially demonstrates that you are ready to start working on your safety projects. I have to provide kudos to the 3 agencies that have already adopted a action plan. And so I'm going to open it up, little trivia. Which 3 municipalities have an action plan in Palm Beach County? There's hints of each on the screen. So Mr. Rich Wagon. Boca Raton's close. They're at like 80%. They said they're really close to getting adopted, but not yet. Anyone else have guesses? Great guess. And yes, they have what is deemed as an eligible series of planning activities that they have done, which enables them to apply for action for implementation grants. So yes, Lake Worth Beach is one of the 3 that's eligible for getting implementation dollars and going out and using federal money to construct. Remaining 2, any guesses? Wellington, bingo. And Wellington actually received a really, really interesting piece of news coverage today about their school zone safety cameras, which was one of the components identified in their safety action plan, as well as enabled through Florida statutes recently. So for those of you who don't know, there's a WPTV news article, it's very easy to find, that covers, I think it was like 1,500 tickets that are not tickets, excuse me, warnings, because they didn't actually get into this process of issuing citations yet. But 1,500 citations and warnings have been issued in Wellington that are enabled through Florida statute. And it has had a measurable impact on speeding in school zones in that jurisdiction. So we're tracking that. We know Green Acres also reported that they are working towards it. I believe there's 4 other jurisdictions that are working on this as well. Good to hear. So the last one I'll just mention is Green Acres. Green Acres recently adopted their Vision Zero action plan, so kudos. And they are actively working with us on identifying some projects for implementation through either the TPAs, or excuse me, the MPOs funding programs, dollar in the jar, or going through the Safe Streets and Roads for All program if there's another implementation grant phase that's opened up this year. Action plans are necessary for you to get implementation dollars. Implementation is the critical element that most communities are desirable after. Construction is one of the largest phases of getting safety projects in the ground. And so having a necessary action plan in place to move it forward is very important and critical. So to give you all a quick glance at where we are at in terms of adoption and applications, and there's a lot of text on here and there's a lot of information, so I'm going to walk you through it. Don't worry. To date, we have 12 action plan grants that have been awarded. So that's the Federal Highway Administration has said we want to give 12 different municipalities and the county an action plan grant award so that they can come up and make themselves ready for eventually going after implementation. We also have had 2 successful planning and demonstration project grants, one for Boca Raton and one for Palm Beach County. Those are totaling about $4 million each. So those are critical because planning and demonstration grants are the things that we use to generally go out and test strategies that might be necessary to work on before doing a full implementation. So some of these things might include tactical urbanism. They might include some changes to how signals operate in the example of Palm Beach County. So it's very important and critical to think about how we can utilize not just action planning, but planning and demonstration grants, which are being done by both Palm Beach County and Boca Raton throughout the area. We do have Boca Raton is continuing down this path of working on planning and demonstration. They submitted a planning and demonstration grant as well as the Village of Palm Springs for this year. The City of Lake Worth Beach and the Village of Wellington also submitted for an implementation grant to start working on some of the elements identified in their action plan. So we don't have the full details of what they requested, but there are applications out there open with FHWA now. So that's kind of like the overview of where we're at currently. The really handy thing for you to pay attention to on this page is the farthest most right column, which says the status of the grant. So for example, just at the top, the City of Boca Raton, they have their two grants, the action plan grant that was awarded in 2022. They're about 80% complete with that project, but they need FHWA to finish basically providing the grant agreement to them for that $4 million planning and demonstration grant. We've been coordinating with FHWA on responses to that effort. And so if you see a hyperlink on that page, it will take you directly to that community's information on safe streets and roads and Vision Zero. So you'll be able to go to the City of Green Acres website and you'll be able to see the Vision Zero action plan that they adopted and are working towards getting funding for now. You'll see the same thing for Palm Springs, Wellington, and we anticipate hearing more in particular from West Palm Beach and from Palm Beach County here in the near future. We know that Palm Beach County is attempting to have a virtual workshop on their safety action plan by the end of November. So be on the lookout for that. And West Palm is kind of tracking in a similar approach. So do take a look at this if you're truly interested in learning more about where the communities are with respect to their grants. Reach out to us. Let us know if you want to hear more. Get in touch with the staff that are working on it. And then importantly, share the information too. We kind of see you all as a Citizens Advisories Committee as kind of liaisons to your municipalities and your districts and your representative communities. So please do stay engaged on SS4A and safety programming. I'm going to talk a lot about crashes and other things that are important. So I'll give you some additional tools and resources here as we dive into the next part of this, which is item 3B in our agenda. So Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I'd like to continue and proceed on to item 3B.
By all means.
And talk about some safety tools and reports. Thank you, sir. Oh, certainly.
By all means, yes, Myron.
How soon do you expect any of the demonstration projects to be completed?
I know that Palm Beach County is waiting for their demonstration project grant agreement. There was a little bit of a pause with the federal administration changeover before the grant agreements were executed between the feds and the locals. Palm Beach County's focus is more so on the flashing yellow arrow program, which I believe that you received some information on recently. If not, we can send you a brochure that Palm Beach County has on flashing yellow arrows. That will be working on implementing flashing yellow arrows in new locations and providing, I want to say, signal preemption for when pedestrians want to cross the street. There'll be a dedicated right that's flashing right for yellow for a right turn. And if a pedestrian comes up and pushes the button, that right turn will turn red, and then the pedestrian will be given the right of way to cross with the signal. So it's a demonstration project that will enable pedestrians to get across the street in an easier crossing maneuver, hopefully reducing some of that mid-block crossing that we see or crossing at non-signalized locations that happen quite frequently.
My real interest is in demonstrating
Mm-hmm.
the effectiveness. That is, so for example, there will be data taken before the implementation of this and then
Monitoring and
during
evaluation.
afterwards.
Yes.
And can we expect every once in a while someone to come and tell us about the results of these demonstration projects, the extent to which they worked or didn't work?
We certainly are eyeing the planning and demonstration type project as a mechanism for learning more across communities. We have reached out and are in active conversation about how we could shake that out as more of a, like a workshop instead of just a formal committee meeting, because there's lots of different types of implementation. So for example, and to answer one of your questions, yes, data reporting is tracked for these grants as well. There's a mechanism for FHWA to require that. But beyond that, the Village of Palm Springs is taking a different approach with how they want to go through their implementation or planning and demonstration, where they're trying to look at things where you reduce the turning radius for curbs to try to slow vehicles down in places where they notice that there's excessive speeding or rutting on the edges of roadways to try to improve risk factors of the road. Boca Raton also has protected intersections, and they, I believe, have a symposium for micromobility safety that's coming up on October 30th. If anyone is interested in participating in that, that's on the City of Boca Raton website. So each community has different safety needs, and a workshop might be a better format instead of having 3 or 4 presenters during a committee meeting, enabling you all to participate in that workshop and have it focus and do a little bit deeper of a dive into that information and data would probably be more worthwhile. So that's the approach we're going to try to take with reporting out the planning demonstration type of.
Another question, FHWA makes these grants. Are these made by pointy-headed bureaucrats in Washington, or is the money dispersed to regional offices, and then is it done more regionally? Who makes the decisions about whether to make
This
a
is the authorization is passed by Congress through the bipartisan infrastructure law. So it starts at Congress and then it goes to FHWA. FHWA does have regional offices and regional staff that are kind of the point people and liaisons, but beyond that, there are also grant specialists that work at FHWA that don't necessarily interact with the local municipalities at all times. I'm not going to borrow your term, but it goes largely to Washington.
okay.
It goes largely to Washington, D.C. to get approved between and in coordination with different municipalities. We do actually have to get involved with when there are multiple applications from the same area. For example, Palm Beach County applied for a planning and demonstration grant last year in 2024. Every application in 2024, because we have sub-jurisdictions of Palm Beach County through our municipalities, we had to coordinate a response that said the county's going to take care of their roads, the cities are going to take care of their roads, and the efforts are separate. We're not duplicating efforts here across these grants.
One final question. I used to be professionally involved with NCHRP.
Mhm.
And it's hard for me to believe that NCHRP hasn't produced a whole bunch of reports on effectiveness of various techniques for improving the safety of streets. Can you comment?
NCHRP more than likely does have reports on safety. I usually go to, for safety type projects, what's the website called? It's a website produced by FHWA and a number of other consortium, but it's Proven Safety Countermeasures is what is used for most of the people that we work with, the engineers, the planners. They go to that website and they look up the specific road context, the specific treatment that you're trying to address, and the specific crash. So for example, if you were trying to deal with runoff road crashes, you might be more effective using a shoulder or a guardrail than you would, let's say, like installing, a hardened median center line. There's different effective treatments for different crashes, and that's the website that I would recommend going to, because you will see NCHRP looking at countermeasures and whatnot, but FHWA provides the formal source for those countermeasures that most jurisdictions use around the country.
Of course, the DOT funds the NCHRP.
Right. So it's kind of like they're working together. NCHRP produces a lot of higher level type literature from what I've seen, and you'll probably see it referenced in some of the countermeasures specifically.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Looking at the list of municipalities or jurisdictions that are not present on this list, I note that 2 of them are probably 2 of Palm Beach County's most under-resourced jurisdictions. And so do you have any insight into whether, like why they didn't apply for this funding? Is that
Sure. I think, not speaking to any specific community, but one of the complaints about overall, anytime there is a federal discretionary program, there's typically a 20% match for grants. So if the city of Boca Raton is capable of getting a grant for 4.3 million, they had to provide a 20% local match to make sure that that happens. And we as an agency cannot fund the match. We are a federal agency. We can't fund a federal match with a federal match dollar. So that's just not how we operate. That's not how we work. So that funding or that dedicated staff time or other resources committed have to come from a local jurisdiction or a partner of that local jurisdiction, according to the SS4A structure. So that's been the main obstacle we've heard about for the communities. We have 39 cities, right? And not everyone has gotten this
Yeah.
grant.
What would be an example of a partner that they could work with?
A nonprofit, a 501c3 university that's committed to providing non-federal dollars or staff time or other resources to assist with the deployment of a grant.
Do you have in mind any examples of successful partnerships that municipalities have forged in the past?
With SS4A specifically not for that program, because most of the agencies that we've seen in Florida have been taking this on their own accord. However, I do want to, just mention that there are health providers that have provided a match for smaller grants. So if you're looking at doing a safety plan and it's only 100K, sometimes the local municipality would put forward 10%, and then like a hospital or another foundation or otherwise would be able to provide that local match to make it happen. It can be a mixture of resources, but it can't be federal. The state also could be a potential match, but that historically has only happened if it's going to happen on things for like state roads. So it's very difficult for locals to get involved in that conversation.
Any other questions about 3A? About safe streets and roads?
Great questions, by the way. Thank you.
Awesome questions. All right. So I do have to ask, Ruth, are there any public comments on that item?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, great. So let's go ahead and move on to 3B, crash reporting toolkit. Brian, floor is yours.
So we have a series of safety tools. I know that Mr. Massa provided a wonderful overview of the crash reporting toolkit to you all last month. I'm going to try to not dive in too much into that one, but we'll give you an overview of some of the other efforts that we have undertaken with respect to safety and show you some tools and resources for when you go out and you tell all your friends and your neighbors about Safe Streets and Roads for All program and how you are all working on becoming safety advocates. So first and foremost is the crash reporting toolkit. So this document really is coming out of our public involvement team. So thank you to Carly for a lot of really hard work on this. It's not only well thought through, but it's also very well produced. So it's very approachable. It's pretty much anybody can pick this up and have a better understanding of how we can communicate information when we are developing crash reports. If you are a law enforcement officer or if you are a healthcare provider that has to write up a trauma report, all the way down to how elected officials, public information officers, your local HOA talks about crashes. And we've had engagements with every one of those groups. We went and did a safety program with an HOA recently where they had a fatality from a child that was hit that didn't have a helmet, just within their boundaries where there's no enforcement mechanism unless someone calls the police to come into the community. So we are trying very hard to get information out about how we talk about crashes. And it starts with our first responders, our news providers, and then it trickles down throughout the community of people and practitioners. So who should be using this toolkit? Obviously, all those groups that I just mentioned. Individuals also can pick this up and learn about the different resources that we have. If you're reading through a news source and you say, well, hey, this person was driving, maybe they were going at an excessively high rate of speed, they weren't able to react and stop in time, and they hit a curb. You might want to think about the roadway context and conditions and approach those pieces of information that you're consuming critically. This will help give you that keen eye that you can use to address and evaluate information as you are consuming it. Just want to reiterate that how we talk about crashes matters. We do have a couple of references up here to crashes, and I just wanted to provide them as examples of good, accurate, fair reporting in both title and subtitle, and then follow-up information from the text. we want to ensure that accurate information is being portrayed throughout the crash reporting cycle. So from the crash report generation all the way to how we produce and reproduce information throughout its chain of information, from the cities who are talking about crashes when they happen, either at the police departments, sheriff's department, all the way through elected officials. This guidebook will help to inform discussion of crashes and why they might have happened, or where to get more information about those crashes. What we're trying to get at is trying to have information that's reported tell a more complete and compelling story around traffic crashes. We want people to think about the conditions of the road and to better understand, is there a history of crashes on this roadway that are pronounced? So you can go to this guidebook and look at the resources that are available from us as the MPO and see if it was part of the high injury network. You can go and see if there are crosswalks nearby where maybe a pedestrian was hit or someone was trying to cross the road, or what infrastructure might have been lacking. Street lighting, bike lanes, or other information. Maybe there's a very high rate of speed on that roadway and there's a history of crashes that have been pronounced on that roadway. So all of this stuff is information that you can get from this crash reporting toolkit. We want to make sure that those are key facts and that they are reported as part of the information. We want to ensure that we're not missing anything like witness accounts or infrastructure that might have been present that would help in the prevention of crashes as we go about continuing conversations and improving safety in Palm Beach County. So one of the additional tools, and I'm happy to take questions and pause there for this crash reporting toolkit before I go into the next phase, if anyone has anything they would like to offer up.
Lauren, do you have a question? No worries.
Oh. Okay, continuing on. So the speed management study was an effort of the Palm Beach TPA. It was identified in our previous Vision Zero action plan, which was updated most recently in 2025. So we published an update to the speed management. We published an update to the Vision Zero action plan and completed the speed management study both in the previous fiscal year. So by end of June, we had this study completed. It's now available through the MPO. We are encouraged that we have really great success in talking with FDOT about speed and talking with Palm Beach County about speed. Why speed matters is that if you get hit by someone driving and you're not in a motor vehicle at 20 miles per hour, you have 85% chance of survival. If you get hit at 40 miles per hour, you have a 10% chance of survival. So it's very important that we talk about speed and we talk about the characteristics and the context of roadways. This effort is kind of new for agencies to be talking about and thinking about, but it is something that we believe to be worthwhile considering that we have the County Transportation Master Plan and many other key elements that are currently underway. So I'm going to start just by saying the target speed outcome. Target speed means we want this road to be a place where people feel only comfortable driving at this mile per hour. And we want to close that gap between what's posted on the street and what people are actually driving. So how many people drive very comfortably on a 25 mile per hour road at a rate of speed much faster than 25 miles per hour? Thank you. It's very clear to see that our roads, even though we want to be have them be safe for people to walk and to bike, we don't always have the characteristics and the context for those things to match. So this effort really was a means to try to identify some places where we could make quick improvements and make some changes that would help close that gap between how fast cars are moving and what we want the roadway to be operating at. And in doing so, we identified a methodology which took what many call big data, which is basically non-motorist activity data that we received from a national database. We took the anticipated traffic stress that people walking and biking could experience on the roadway, and these two elements are quite critical for identifying a target speed, because if there's not a lot of non-motorist activity, while it could be said that there's maybe some reason for that, it's not safe to walk, not safe to bike, they are critical because they do contribute to the characteristics of the road. We also looked at number of lanes and the context classification for roadways. If it's a urban roadway probably has a higher chance of being a lower target speed than a rural roadway, for example. We also use transit ridership and the MPO's high injury network to emphasize that these things are not just about walking, biking, or driving. We want to make sure that we're capturing where people might be getting on and off buses, because that's also somewhat of a picture that we want to better understand how those transit users are impacted in terms of crashes in the future as well. So what we came up with is a non-authoritative document. So there's no force that we're putting onto the Palm Beach County Traffic Engineering Division or FDOT with this. We're trying to identify what's called a preliminary target speed. So based off of those characteristics that I just said, non-motorist activity, level traffic stress, transit ridership, the current operating speed, and all of these factors, we tried to assign a project speed that we felt was appropriate for future things to be implemented. So you can see that on the map there's a gradient of colors. As you get to dark red, it's a higher speed. As it's a light blue, it is a much lower speed. So the lowest speed is 25 miles per hour or less. That's mostly your downtown streets. So if you're going 40 miles per hour through downtown West Palm Beach, you have a very high chance of hurting someone. The downtown is not designed to accommodate that. But as you go out on to Okeechobee Boulevard or Southern Boulevard, you pretty much, those are free flow or very close to interstate speeds, especially as you go further and further west. Final target speeds, this is really meant to be a guide for us as we work with partners. So if we have projects that are coming in through the long range transportation plan, or that we are getting from our county or cities that they want to fund projects, we can use this as a reference and as a tool to say, hey, your operating speed is higher than the posted speed limit. And we want to try to get that down closer to the target speed. So what countermeasures can we deploy to get that there, to the right place? There are some corridors we couldn't come up with the final preliminary target speed. You ask us to go look at Southern Boulevard, and there is very, very difficult conditions to contend with there. A posted speed of 55 miles per hour, an operating speed of closer to 70, especially as you get further and further west. So there are things that we just can't come up with on a desktop level analysis. It requires a refined analysis that we would have to do at a later date. But we did capture most of our system that we work with here at the MPO. Some of the example corridors and countermeasures that we identified, and I'm really happy that the coverage came out today about the village of Wellington in the school zones, because one of the improvements identified was transportation system management and operations. So that's TSM&O, and the village of Wellington had Wellington Trace. I'm not sure if that's one of the project specific corridors that has schools speed cameras in place, but that is an example metric of how we can use new technologies to better control speeds on the streets without changing any of the infrastructure. We do have other corridors such as Forest Hill Boulevard, where there's only a sidewalk, there's no bicycle lane, there's no micromobility accommodations that are made on the corridor from Congress Avenue to US 1. So things like that, we might want to look at a little bit closer and make sure that there's adequate rights of way and other things. But overall, we came up with 10 corridors where we could have a series of improvements that would try to reduce that operating speed down to a more comfortable place for people who are, using the street. So that's just some basic examples and some, high level overview. There's obviously a lot more detail. If you really want to nerd out with me, I'm happy to do so, and to give you all an idea of, some of the things that we did look at, the process that we went through in detail, but I also don't want to bore everybody. So just a reminder to you all, you got a preview of this last month. The Crash Dashboard did get some really great hits afterwards, so thank you for sharing, whoever did. We appreciate you giving those metrics, giving us the views and making sure that people are seeing this, but we do have a really great Crash Dashboard. I included a reference to it in this slide, just as a reminder for you all. Our hope is that we will have the 2024 data implemented on this dashboard by the end of this year. So the 2019 to 2024 should be updated and referred to. So be on the lookout for that as we move on and move forward. So with that, happy to close and answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
I know he's got them.
I know Myron's got them. All right, Myron, what's up?
A job. That's why I come to ask questions.
Good, good.
I think
Happy to
it's-
answer.
I really appreciate all the whole presentation and the focus. I just noticed you had a list of countermeasures.
Mhm.
And adjusting lane width was not among those countermeasures.
Okay.
And I know that in discussions of my favorite road, which is North Lake Boulevard,
Mhm.
that there are discussions in the expansion of North Lake Boulevard of decreasing the lane width and therefore accompanying that with a decreased speed limit.
Mhm.
Because in fact, people do drive slower when the lanes are not as wide. Is that something that's,
That is true. So what Myron is speaking to is the lane width of the lanes that we drive on. And so if you think about Interstate 95, 12 to 14-foot wide travel lanes, you don't feel like you're sometimes going that fast when you're on those streets. But if you're driving a much larger vehicle, maybe a large SUV, a large van, or a tractor trailer, you will feel the speeds that you're going at very appropriately. When you're in a passenger vehicle, a sedan, small SUV, and you're going 70 miles per hour, you think, wow, I can drive really fast. But as you get onto a local street or a street with a narrower travel lane, so who here is familiar with Forest Hill Boulevard, east of 95 specifically, where you know how narrow those lanes get when you're driving because you feel it. It's a very, very different feel to as you go west. So if you have the opportunity, drive down Olive, turn onto Forest Hill Boulevard, and just see the widths of the street and get a feel for how you drive. Because as you go into the western communities, you do feel like you can drive more comfortably faster. This is just an example list of countermeasures. We don't list that one's not for any particular reason. We do refer to the speed management methodology, which is published by FDOT for the state highway system because it's the most advanced, and local communities can use that for their own purposes. And it does include lane reduction as well as lane repurposing for other uses. So this is just an example list from the project specifically that we came up with, but there are others that we can draw upon.
as we discussed, I think last meeting, the reconstruction of Banyan, which included,
Another great example.
it's a terrific example, and the lanes are much narrower now than they used to be. And I think it helps.
Right. And I think it's worth noting, just for the sake of separated bicycle lanes, lane width, all of those things were recently implemented on Lake Worth Road, where the new separated bike lanes were completed. And, you know, the goal of Vision Zero is to eliminate serious injuries and fatalities. It is not to eliminate all crashes. You know, it would be unwise to think that we're going to get rid of, you know, someone hitting a curb or someone losing it, you know, blowing out a tire. Those crashes are going to happen regardless of the road system that we have. But we have had 0 serious injuries and fatalities, according to the reading we had with FDOT, since that project has been implemented on Lake Worth Road for any user, motorist, person biking, person scootering, or person walking. So for all intents and purposes, that's a win.
All right. Any other comments? No, Brian, thank you. And thank you to the TPA too. The amount of tools and information available to us is fantastic and greatly appreciated as an asset to the community. That being said, we're going to move on to the last bit of stuff, which is item 4, which is administrative. Hold on real quick. Ruth, there's no public comments on that last time, correct?
No public comments. However, actually, we do have Victoria Williams with Florida Turnpike that'd like to say something.
Oh, okay, sure, by all means.
Hello. Yes, Victoria Williams. I work at FDOT, Florida's Turnpike Enterprise, and I'd like to invite you to a public hearing that we are going to hold. It's to discuss our PD&E study of the new interchange, possibly a crossover where I-95 and the Turnpike would be a system-to-system interchange. And this is intended to help relieve the Jupiter area where we have Indiantown Road is a very frequently used area of crossover. And it will also help further up the line in Fort Pierce, where folks are making the same move. So this study is at the public hearing level. There's great information on our website, floridasturnpike.com. I'm also going to have the TPA's help in distributing the invitation through the newsletter. So you'll be able to see there of the two opportunities to join and give your feedback and learn some information about the proposal. There's a virtual public hearing, and it's going to be held on the 20th of October. On the 21st, we're going to be in Stewart, and this interchange is a little north of Palm Beach County, actually in Martin County, because we had some natural features to avoid in the northern end of Palm Beach County. So this is the location that was chosen for the best opportunity. So if you're able to go, 5:30 on Tuesday, the 21st of October, it's going to be held at the Wolf Technology Center over at the Indian River State College in Martin County. So we're looking forward to being able to talk to folks for about a half hour. And at 6 o'clock, there's going to be a presentation. You know, all of this data is online, even the boards that'll be at the public meeting in person. So the material is the same in both places. If you have feedback, please do let us know your thoughts. Any questions, let me know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I personally have heard about that project and looking forward to it. So be wonderful. We're a little out of order today, but just make sure there's no more questions or comments or anybody else. We're good? All right. So just to close out administrative items, 4A through 40 are informal only. There'll be no staff presentations unless requested by a committee member. Seeing no requests. Are there any public comments on these items?
No, Mr. Chair.
And our next CAC meeting for the Palm Beach Metropolitan Planning Organization is scheduled for December 3rd, 2025. At this time, our meeting is adjourned.